Let's get started with you.
Okay,
Just
gotcha.
introduce yourself. We ask all of the people who are coming in for these interviews to introduce themselves with their name and their age and what they do right now as they'd call their full-time job.
Okay,
So
my name is Paul Szopa, and I'm a candidate for the 23rd District seat for the Missouri House of Representatives. I am 65 years old. My wife Kathy and I have been married for 41 years, and going back to ancient history, I worked my way through college. Well, my parents were separated right before I was born, and divorced right after I was born. So it was tough on my mother. I have an older brother, and so raised in Fayette. I worked my way through college. I worked at a sawmill for about 3 years, and at a gas station, and I was during the '60s. I was pretty good hot rod mechanic on some of those big muscle cars that we all drove around back then. And I worked 3 years, 11 to 7 shift as an orderly in Keller Hospital over there, which is now defunct. And the 3 years working for General Chemical Division of Allied Chemical Corporation, spraying weeds on railroads all over the country, from the Delmarva Peninsula to out west to Louisiana and so forth. And after I graduated from college in 1967, and then I went to work I got a job at the university in the old forestry department, which is now defunct through reorganizations and so forth. Worked there through 1982, and was laid off with the budget cuts. While Chancellor Ewing was beautifying the campus. As an aside, when you walk across campus, I think the Lowry Mall out in front of the library and the Union, they were building that in June of 1982, because my last days of work now walked across that. So we had some tough times there, but I got a job, a part-time job at the old Shaper Cotter Hardware, and then a fellow took a real chance on me and hired me back with the liver physiology research lab over in the med center. And then probably for the last 15 years I was here, I was a photographer over at the Academic Support Center. And that background came from I did a lot of photographic work for the old forestry department and for the School of Forestry, Fisheries, and Wildlife, which it sort of evolved into. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it. I took an early retirement in 2000, and since then I've been a hardware man.
Working at Westlakes, right?
Yep. When it got close to leaving, I set up, my two big enlargers. I redid my counters, I redid my sink, put my enlargers all together, and had everything going. And I was going to go out and I was going to do some art. And after 2 years, I didn't take any pictures, so I just put it all away in storage, and we use that room for storage now. So just the thought of picking up a camera and actually taking a picture with it is just. I prayed that I would get out of the business before it all went digital, and I just barely made it. I have no interest in the
digital photography.
In the digital stuff. No,
it's such a different game.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I in our earlier vision, I talked about the prints over at the Union and the ones downstairs here. That was all trays and dodging and burning in and all that kind of stuff. Where now you can just sit at a keyboard and do it with Photoshop and I guess some of the other ones.
Yeah.
And I'm not a computer guy. I had no interest in that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to start with your time at the university. I was going to start with taxes because you've talked about it a lot, but higher education, you worked for the university through several stints, and you've said that working at the Academic Support Center has informed your campaign.
Yeah.
My question would be that the higher education seems to be on the chopping block. People worried about pensions, tuition becoming unfreezed. How do you prioritize funding for higher education? Clearly, a value in this community.
It certainly has to be a high value. I cannot make any promises because I'm not privy to all the information and the budget stuff, and that's one of the things going in as a freshman, you can kind of decide or make requests as to what committees you want to be on, and one of the three committees that I want to be on is the budget committee, and where you can get out there and prioritize, where those limited funds are going to go. And I'm an anti-tax increase person, and so we have to live within the budget, and that goes on to. If we start raising taxes, then that's going to hurt businesses. And I'm a real advocate for small business. What I'm reading about is they want to make tax incentives to get the big companies to move to Missouri. I would rather that we support have the lower taxes to support the businesses that are here. So within that overall framework, then yes, I've got roots here. I've got some friends that still work here, and so the university would certainly be high up on my priorities. But my number one priority, and this has come up in a couple of other interviews, is there's this whole umbrella called public safety. And at the state level, that's the Highway Patrol, Water Patrol. That's roads, making sure that our roads are safe. I'm a real proponent of mandatory sentences to get violent criminals out of the population, and society will be safer. And I'm a real proponent for making sure that there's adequate funding for the Missouri Department of Agriculture, to make sure that, livestock is healthy, it's well taken care of, and they inspect our food supply and the food production. And it's just, they're just all of those kind of things. And just as an aside, this, more than any political candidate, I think that probably the most important issue on the ballot is that Proposition B, which I absolutely oppose. That has nothing to do with my campaign or anything, but with Charles, I've listened to speeches by Charles Cruz, president of the Missouri Farm Bureau Federation, Dr. Taylor Woods, Missouri State veterinarian, speaking for the Missouri Department of Agriculture, and the Missouri Farmers Association. I've talked with Chuck Lay out there, and this has nothing to do with puppy mills. It's the intent of the Humane Society of the United States is to remove meat from the human diet, and they're going after agriculture. They're going to say that's not it, but they've shut down the poultry and egg industry in California and pork production in Florida. They're activists in Ohio right now, and these people here. If you use this, what your listeners need to realize that there is a big difference between animal rights and animal welfare. And I'm a real animal welfare person. I want, if a farmer's got livestock out there, I want them taken care of, but I don't think that they have the same legal rights that I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's just...
I'm
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
going off. I know you can edit all this out.
Exactly.
But I would like you to know, just kind of where I'm coming from.
Right. I want to bring you back to higher education.
Gotcha.
and just sort of to try and put together something out of what,
Gotcha. Okay.
kind of where you were coming from in that last, is that you kind of see higher education is not as big of a priority to you as things like public safety. Is that what I'm hearing? I just want to get a sense of your priorities.
I have to say that yes, that I think that accurately says it.
Mm-hmm.
The education is just so very important, and if you don't, if you don't have the university system in place and well funded, then the quality of life in this state is going to go down. Just stepping back for me, I mentioned earlier about that I had gotten laid off in '82 while Chancellor Ewing was beautifying the campus. here I was, we had 3 little kids and bills to pay. We were buying a house and all that. And my, as it affected me personally at that time, I'm out of work. I've lost my job because they didn't have the funds to pay me. But at the same time, there was this construction work going on all over campus. And my feeling is that I want to make sure that we have adequate funding to keep everybody on the job here. I don't want to be in a situation where we have to start laying people off at the university in favor of doing buildings. I mean, if there's money for both personnel and buildings, then then that's fine. But given the choice, I'll go with the people over buildings every time, because that's not just the professors and the people in and they're actively interacting with the students, but that's the people that keep the buildings clean. It's the the groundskeepers and all of that. So
on the other side in the other district,
Sure.
the Democratic candidate in that race, Chris Kelly, has proposed year in and year out that we pass bonding measures in order to we'd send those to the voters to allow primarily the higher education institutions to build up new buildings like the new engineering school on campus here. And I wonder where you stand on that, the idea of maybe passing bonding bills to fund higher education, because it's something that's gotten some interest, but it hasn't really gotten the push to get through the House.
I am going to have to hear a whole lot more detail on that. I'm not a politician. I work in a hardware store. Okay, I mean, you need to understand that right up front. And the whole issue of bonding has come up, and I've talked to a couple of people, but I'm kind of on the Republican conservative side versus, I don't have that much contact with the Democrat liberal side. Okay, so I'm kind of getting a one-sided view of that. But I would be inclined to go along with that as long as I know who's going to pay for those bonds in the end. I mean, if the economy stays down in the tank and the unemployment in Missouri starts to go up, or we have fewer people paying taxes, we don't have the revenue there. I mean, we have to look, not what's going to happen next year, but what's could transpire through the next 5 to 10 years.